Memories of Carl. Uh, First, I'm going to share with you a few of the things he did for the city. I'm sure you all know that he served on the Environment Commission. You know, during this past election, when he missed it by a whisker, I said, "Carl, you want to go back on the Environment Commission?" He says, "No, I've got other things I have to take care of." All right. He was a founding member of the Brockville Bike Advisory Committee. Now, you know, and one of the wishes he has is that if any donations are made, that one of the groups he would like to see the donations made was Bikes to the World. Those of you who are bikers out there in the audience, and I see there are many here today, know how much he cared about that program and how diligently he worked to make it happen. How many of you actually came here today on your bicycle? I see so many bicycles. Put your hand up. How about those of you who walked? So many people said, "I'm going to walk here today." Just seeing you out there, it is absolutely knee-shaking, I can tell you. I know you know what he did for the bikes. Obviously, you all know his tale about how he got out there and measured the Wooten Parkway area to make sure that Millennium Trail could be done. He was so passionate about things he cared about and so stubborn. And you knew if Carl wanted to get it done, it was going to get done. If he didn't do it this time, he would do it next time. But he was committed, deliberate, a real considerate individual who cared about people and the things that mattered to them. He was president of the Hungerford Civic Association. And I have to say the display out there in the lobby is Carl from stem to stern, if I may say that. It is a real tribute to how his community cared about him as he cared about his community. I'm sure he was out there digging everybody's snow out during our last terrible storm. I first came in contact with Carl when he ran for office in 2001. It wasn't long before I began calling him Mr. Peak Oil. I told him so many times on the campaign trail. He later ran in 2007 and again in 2009. "You got to do something besides peak oil. You're absolutely right about it. But you know, most people don't even know what you're talking about. They want to hear about what's needed in Rockville, what you can do for the city." We must have had that discussion at least 2 dozen times. But he always had a way of bringing it back into the conversation, even when you got him not to talk about it. And he had a marvelous sense of humor. I don't know how many of you have heard this, but I'm sure you must have. In the latest campaign, there was all these debates. You know, we have debates all over the city, and one, of course, that we had up at the Thomas Farm was a debate where they asked him a lot of questions we didn't know were coming. And one of those questions was regarding the chickens in the city of Rockville. Well, it was kind of a silly question. I guess that was to break the ice. But when Carl got up to say, "What is it that, to answer the question, which we do about chickens in Rockville?" his comment was, "Well, if it lays, it stays. If it grows, it goes." He had an uncanny way of bringing the humor into what is maybe a humorous situation, but nobody wants to laugh out loud. He was marvelous at that, and I will miss that tremendously. He was a catalyst for developing the community gardens of Rockville. I can remember hometown holidays many years ago in which Carl had set up his own little stand. He brought a table and some boards and kind of display, as Carl normally did. He had lots of data, and he wanted people to sign up for community gardens in their community. Isn't there a piece of ground somewhere we can put a garden? And he really meant this. He wanted it all over the city. Well, I don't have to tell you, he put his money where his mouth is. The city has 187 different plots around the city. That is due to Carl's efforts. Yes, the city had some gardening. It was because neighbors had asked for it. But it wasn't until Carl took this on as one of his missions that actually blossomed, if you will, across the city. And for that, we will always have a community garden notion. There's so many ways in which the city could recognize Carl. I know your mayor and council will talk about this probably over the next couple of weeks. We don't do anything very fast, so but if you have some ideas, by all means, pass them on to us. As you know, he was the passionate environmentalist. My goodness, did he ever practice his passion. He came to Citizens Forum and to public hearings whenever there was a part of that event or issue that he felt strongly about. I always felt when he came up, oh, here comes Mr. Peak Oil. I thought something's going to happen. But one thing I knew, whatever he had to say, I always had the feeling underneath he was on the side of the angels. Because he had a way of bringing it to you and making it practical and giving it some sound base that didn't have a lot of bias to it. Only his bias, of course. Rockville has truly lost one of its treasures. Carl was a unique individual. He was passionate. As I say, he had an ability to lace whatever he said with humor. It was as though you knew you could talk comfortably with him. You never approached Carl, or he never approached you, with giving you any sense of threat. Uh-oh, here comes something. Never felt that way about him. It was like a friendly face. It was interesting that some of his colleagues have said things about how friendly he was and how warm and giving he was of his talents. That's the way he felt. We all had that, I'm sure I'm speaking for most of us here, we had that sense of warmth about him, that he was one of us, he cared, he would help, he would do. I asked the city staff, is there something in particular you wanted to say? And Clarify Coucher wrote something that I'm going to read to you because I think it's very touching and so apt. She said, and he loved his family. Carl believed that the way we live our lives, one by one, is the gift we share with our loved ones, and the way we treat the earth is the legacy we leave our children. Who would have thought that nature could be so kind to take away someone who loved it so much? Carl's work is done. It is our work as his friends and admirers to carry it forward. I know the city will do that. Thank you for the honor of speaking.